Ryan, did you want to make mention of that for the cards and stuff?
Yeah, the prison ministry that I spoke to you guys about a couple weeks ago, I thought it'd be good to add the men and women of the Salvation Army, the courthouse. There's one in Indy, one in Fort Wayne where I was at. Go get that list. The director of everything, I just think everything a lot. So I'll have him send that to me, and I will put it out there alongside the sign list. Encourage everybody to sign that. Just, there were guys that, even in there where I was there, that had no family, and Mandy would send them cards and letters and things, and it would just, they would be beaming for a week, just give a letter.
Yep.
I thought that'd be nice to add.
In case you didn't hear, Ryan and Jared both are starting a thing to where they're going to write different inmates from Scott County that are in the local county jail and I think in prison, plus in different rehabs. So if you'd like to be a part of writing those guys' letters, talk to Ryan or talk to Jared. Know from being the chaplain there, sometimes they can make or break a guy just to get a piece of, a letter in the mail. And just Amberly can vouch for that too. Working with the women can just change their whole perspective of life. So if you'd like to do that, talk with Jared or with Ryan. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11. Paul picks up in verse 11 and says, "Put on the full armor of God, that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil." So far up to this point, the Apostle Paul has identified two things for us. First of all, he's identified for us in verse 10 how to be prepared for the battle. Everybody is so quick. I was just talking to someone last week that said that they went through a deep study on the spiritual warfare of putting on the armor of God. And they said that in every spiritual warfare sermon they ever heard, everyone starts with verse 11 and skips verse 10. But I'm here to tell you that until you do verse 10, and you are verse 10, you can't progress into verse 11. And so the Apostle Paul has made two things clear to us so far. First of all, in verse 10, he has already told us that there's a certain type of preparation that you have to be in order to adequately put on the armor. And that is in verse 10, that we're to be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might. Because the battle that we're facing isn't a natural battle that you can fight on natural means. It's a supernatural battle and must be fought in supernatural ways. So that you don't fight in the strength of your own strength against a powerful enemy. You fight in the strength of another that gives you the opportunity to actually win the battle. And just to remind you, the word that's used there for strong and strength, it's used there twice. In the Greek, that word isn't like, I hope I'm strong enough to beat this guy. No, the word in the Greek carries with it the ideal that it's the kind of strength that absolutely indefinitely conquers hands down. So in other words, Paul's saying that if we get into this fight and fight in the Lord, it's not an option that maybe you win or lose. It's an option that you absolutely will win every single time if you fight in this power and this strength. Let me give you an example of what this means just briefly. Let's just say that we decided to take a church trip to go to Chicago and we went to the Sears Tower. And we all got there, and some of us, due to our age or physical capabilities, stand at the bottom of the building, you look up and say, my goodness, it's 100 flights of stairs to get to the top of that Sears Tower. I simply just can't, in my own strength, accomplish the task of getting to the top of the Sears Tower. But thanks to the modern inventions of man, they've developed a way that even though you may not have the physical strength of your own power naturally to get to the top of the building, they have provided other means upon which you put your strength in something else to get on top of the building, and it's called an elevator. So that you, in your own self, by your own strength, can't accomplish the task of getting to the top of the building, so you put your strength in something else that can actually carry you, and by its strength, it takes you up and helps you to accomplish the task that in your natural strength you could never do, and that is to get to the top of the building by putting your strength in the strength of another thing, and in that strength you accomplish the task. Paul's saying the same thing here. In our fight against the devil, if we fight in our own natural strength, it's like us standing at the bottom of the Sears Tower realizing we can't make it up there. But when we fight in the strength of the Lord, it's like we get into that elevator and He, by His own strength, pushes us up there and helps us to fight the devil in the battle against Satan, and we become victorious. So Paul says in verse 10, first of all, in order to get into the battle, there has to be a certain amount of preparation. And this battle, and to be prepared to take the armor on, begins that we first of all have to be strong in the Lord. I don't have time to review that and go back into that, but that's the first prerequisite of what it means to put on the armor. The second aspect that we know about the armor of God, Paul mentioned last week. Here in verse 11, he says, to put it on. Once a military individual has gone through boot camp and has the strength to actually fight, the next aspect is to learn how to fight by using the armor properly. That doesn't make any sense for a soldier to go out and go to war without any proper armor on. Or it doesn't make sense for him to go into the war without even knowing how to use that actual armor. He's going to get killed, get annihilated very quickly. And so once the Apostle Paul has said there's a condition for you to be able to put the armor on, that's that you have to be strong in the Lord. Once you are strong in the Lord, the next condition is then get into the battle. And you get into the battle by having the right equipment on. And notice he says the word put on, which means that it's a personal, individual act of a person's own will to be actually doing this on their own. No one can do this for you. It's an act that you must be doing on your own accord. Just like when you get the age of 4 or 5, you should be putting your own clothes on. Your parents don't help you do that anymore because you're of age. You can do it on your own. Paul says, because we are mature and strong in Christ, no one should be putting this on for us. This is a responsibility we do on a daily basis. And notice also, we discussed it just briefly last week, that he says to put the full armor on. Which indicates for us, in the fact that it says the word armor there, that this isn't just some picnic in the park. The word there for armor means that this is an actual battle that we're engaging in. And if you were in a war, you would not have a moment when you were in the battle, even sleeping or awake or just walking wherever it was, there would never be a moment if you were actually in a physical battle that you would never be armored properly because the enemy could attack at any time. But I find so often in the Christian life, because we don't really believe we're actually in a war, the devil ambushes us at different times during the day because we're not properly armed, because we don't have the full battle on each day. One day we do, next day we don't. One day we do, next day we don't. It's an easy ambush for him. But Paul here tells us that to put on the full armor, and the word armor suggests us that this is a battle, not just a one-time battle, but a continuous progressive battle. And so therefore, the putting on full armor just isn't a one-day-at-a-time thing. It's every single day, every single moment, 24 hours a day. We're to wear this armor that Paul's going to describe for us here in these verses. So Paul's done two things so far. He's told us the condition we got to be in to fight, verse 10. He's told us now that we're in condition to fight, what do? We put on the armor. And then he tells us the next most important thing is, well, who are we fighting against? I mean, it doesn't really make sense to go into a war against the enemy whom you do not know. Because if you don't know who you're fighting against, it makes no difference how much armor you have. If you don't know how to fight or who he is, how can you use it properly? You can't. So he defines for us here that our enemy here is the devil. Now, it's important for us to understand that every good military battle that ever happened in history, when the military conquest was won, whether it be the Civil War or World War II, if you go back and look at historical documents, they just didn't go into the war and think, oh, okay, they've got bazookas and machine guns over here, they've got army tanks, I didn't know this was coming, let's just fight them. No, they sent spies. There was ways they figured out the enemy long before the enemy attacked them. So when the enemy attacked them, they were prepared to fight them because they already studied and knew the enemy in the first place. When I played basketball, and I know I use basketball as an illustration, but I played it for so long, it used to be my life. I find a lot of connectability with it in sermons. In high school, when we played basketball, I remember that Brady Wells oftentimes would go and scout other basketball teams long before we ever played them. So, for instance, we were playing Charlestown one week. What would usually happen is the Thursday night before the game, he would take us in after practice and he would set us down, and because he had scouted them so well, he already knew all their plays and all the players' strengths and all the players' weaknesses. So when we would sit down and we would watch the game film, he would already have it mapped out for us, every play and the name of the play that we're going to run, so that when they ran that play, we would know what kind of play it was going to be. And he would have listed out for us all the different strengths. This guy was a shooter, this guy's a defender, this guy's a ball handler. But not only would he put their strengths on there, he would also put their weaknesses. So we would know whether or not this guy could play defense, whether he was left-handed, whether he was right-handed, whether this guy's slow, whether this guy's fast. He would have all this scoped out. So therefore, if we knew that we were going to be playing a team that was really good at shooting three-pointers, that meant for us that we would be playing what's called a 2-3 zone, that we would stop them from shooting a bunch of threes. But we would know that ahead of time going into the game because of the scouting report that our coach prepared, because he had already studied our opponent and knew them ahead of time, so we were ready for them when they came at us. But can I suggest to you that you have the greatest scouting report that's ever been invented by man in regards to the devil right in your hands? In other words, you don't have to go try to figure out the enemy, hoping you can figure where he's at and what he's doing. It's already been written for you. What you got to do is study it to find his maneuvers, how he works, and how he acts. Now, I want you to think about this. We're going to see here in a second that even the devil himself was a created being. Even before he was evil, he was something other than evil. Before he was evil, he was something different, but he was created by God. Now, I want you to think about this. If the devil and all the creation is created by God himself, do you not think that God, being omniscient means that God is all-knowing? He knows all things about everything already. And if he knew the devil was going to fall before the devil fell and knows the tactics of the devil, do you not think that God knows the devil better than the devil knows himself? And yet God has given us a documentation about the devil and how to fight our enemy that he already knows better than the enemy himself. So don't you think it's important for us to take this scouting report that we have, that God's given to us, the perfect wisdom of God given to us about this enemy, who he already knows his plans, his ways, his maneuvers, and it should be important for us as we go into this battle with the devil to understand that we have a report laid out for us. It's not exact detail of everything that the enemy does, but it's exact amount that God wants us to know that we can fight properly. Does that make sense? Now I want you to consider this too. Unlike most natural enemies, when an individual goes out to war, they can prepare all they want to, but it's not a guarantee they're going to win. It's hoping that they will win. They hope they're prepared enough when they go into the battle to win, but it's not a guarantee they're going to win. But do you know what's the exact opposite in our war with the devil? You can have the confidence before you even go and fight the devil that you're already going to win ahead of time. Pending. You don't fight on your own natural strength. You fight in the strength that Christ gives you. It's the only enemy in the world to where you can go into it ahead of time, not thinking whether or not I'm going to win, I hope it's optional, maybe it's going to be, no, the Bible gives you a guarantee. You absolutely will win ahead of time. He's already defeated. You just got to fight in the right way. And folks, when you understand that reality and you do battle with the devil, you can have confidence that you fight in the ways that Paul's going to show us here. It's not maybe I'm going to fight, maybe I'm going to win over the devil. You absolutely are guaranteed to win because of the promise of the Word of God. Because we find all throughout the Word of God that the devil has already been defeated. How do I know that? Because you look at the amount of time he spent trying to thwart the plan of Jesus when he was on this earth, because he was desperate to stop the plan of Jesus, because he knew that if Christ got to the cross and died on that cross and rose again, he was ultimately defeated. That's why when you see that from the very outset of Jesus' birth, from the time he was born, Herod sends out the army out there to go kill all the kids 2 years old and younger. It was a plot of Satan to destroy Christ before he got started. You look at the life of Christ. Soon after he was baptized, he was sent out into the desert to be tempted by the devil to bypass the cross and cave into the temptations of Satan. You look at Judas, who betrayed Jesus, a plot of Satan. You look at Peter, who told Jesus innocently and naively perhaps, saying, listen, you shall never go to Jerusalem and die on that cross. You look at the amount of times that the religious people constantly tried to stop the plan of Jesus and to ridicule him. And all the way up to the time of the flogging, and even up to the cross, as people were walking by and they were throwing threats and insults at Christ, every bit of the life of Christ was one specific plot. Satan, one time after another, trying to defeat Jesus, and he didn't conquer him on the cross. But now that he's conquered on the cross and defeated, he knows that he can't get at Jesus, so he comes to the next most prized possession of God, and that's you. You can't get Christ, he's defeated, so he'll come at you. But even in this battle, you can have confidence that even before the battle begins, you've already won if you fight in the power of Christ. And here's why I say that for. If you look at the scriptures, we see like verses in Genesis 3:15. Soon after Adam and Eve sins, this is God's verdict towards the devil. He says, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. Already from the very time that man sinned, God's already promised, devil, you've influenced man to sin, but one day you're going to be defeated, and I'm going to annihilate you. The battle's already won before it even got started. Colossians 2:13 through 15. When you were dead in your transgressions and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he made you alive together with him, having forgiven all our transgressions, having canceled out the certificate of debt consisting of decrees against us, which was hostile to us, and he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to a cross. When he disarmed the rulers and authorities, he made a public display of them, triumphing over them through him. Once again, he's victorious. Hebrews 2:14 through 15. Therefore, since children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise also partook of the same, that through the death he might render powerless him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and might free those who through fear of death were subject to slavery all their life. And then you've got 1 John 3:7 through 8. Little children, let it make sure that no one deceives you. The one who practices righteousness is righteous, just as he is righteous. The one who practices sin is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. Get this, but the Son of God appeared for this purpose, to destroy the works of the devil. Before the battle even begins, before you ever even get into the battle, the promise is already yours, but you're already going to be victorious, even before the battle's over, if you fight in the right way, which is not in your strength, but in verse 10, the strength of his might. It's the only battle in the world, even before you get into it, you're already guaranteed to actually win. Only battle in the world. And that's the promise that you and I have going into this war and going into this battle. So who is our enemy? Well, again, Paul says it here in verse 11. He says it's the devil. Now, the most common names used in the Bible to describe our enemy is the devil and, anybody else know the other common name? Satan. The word Satan is used 52 times in the New Testament, 4 times in the Old Testament. The word for devil is used roughly 30 to 35 times in the New Testament. The word Satan means adversary. But the word for devil, anybody know what that word means? Means accuser or slanderer. Now we're going to see here in a second, there's other names used of the devil, but you're going to find that the Bible describes the number 2 names the word describes of our enemy was the devil and Satan, because that's the way he works mostly. Slanderer, accuser, and adversary. Just to show you how this works and how much of an accuser the enemy is, just look at Job chapter 1, 6 through 10. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came to them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where do you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around on it." The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there's no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge about him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land." In other words, Satan is accusing God before Job, saying, "God, the only reason that Job's even following you is because you're giving him anything already anyway. Take away his wealth and his possessions, and I guarantee you, God, he won't follow you, so I'm accusing you for Job being who he is." Then he does it again in Job chapter 2, verse 1 through 5. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present themselves before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered and said, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around on it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there's no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil. And he still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to ruin him without cause." Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin, yes, all that a man has he will give for his life. However, put forth your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to his face." Once again, God's saying, God, the only reason that Job is following you is because you're giving him his health. You take away his health, and you'll find that he doesn't want to follow you. I'm accusing you of him being who he is, but you take it away from him, he won't follow you no more. Job presents very clearly how the devil is very much so an accuser. And don't just think that he accuses those who live in sin. You see here in this passage right here, Job was the most blameless and upright man on the entire earth. And he targeted him. And then we have Revelation 12, 9 through 10. "And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil, and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of Christ have come. For the accuser of our brother has been thrown down, he who accuses them before our God day and night. I don't know if you've ever thought about this before, but how does the devil accuse? I mean, his name is, the devil means an accuser. How does he do that? What's that practically look like in our life? Well, I would say it's not much any different than the common person you find who goes around making accusations about other people. Most of the time, when false accusations are leveled out against someone else, they're always safeguarded by a huddle of lies. And it makes sense for Satan to do that, because in John 8:44 it says, Jesus talking to the Pharisees, he says, "You are of your father, the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks his own nature, for he is a liar and he is the father of lies." Let me just give you an example of how this works. One of the greatest accusations that the devil does, but that being his nature, that gets a lot of Christians, is that he plays role reversal. So much so that he'll oftentimes make the victim feel like the victimizer, and the victimizer feel like the victim. Let me show you how this works. When I worked for CPS, I can't tell you the number of times when I would talk with young kids, or kids that were now in their teens, that were sexually molested. Specifically, I remember 15, 16-year-old kids. And I asked them, well, how long has this been going on? About since I was 3. And I was like, wait a second, this has been going on since you were 3 years old. Why did you never tell anybody about this for? Quote, "Because I was made to believe I was the victim." You know how the victimizer made it feel like they were the victim? They say things like this: "Now, if you tell your parents, they're going to spank you, no one's going to believe you, and the cops might come and talk to you, you might get arrested, so don't tell anybody, you're going to make people mad." The victimizer makes the victim feel like the victimizer, while the victim becomes the victimizer. See the role reversal? You take a young man, takes a girl out, has her in the car, and says something like this: "If you really love me, you'll sleep with me. But I guess you don't love me, so you're not going to have sex with me, so I guess you don't care about me." Wait a second. The victim is trying to make himself look like the victimizer, while the victimizer, he's trying to make be the victim. You see the role reversal? So how does Satan do this? You're praying for something to happen in your life, and God doesn't answer the question. God doesn't answer your prayer the way you think He should answer it. Or God, there's bad things that happen in your life, and you had these expectations that God was just going to bless your life beyond measure, and all of a sudden, deaths happen, diseases happen, finances fail, jobs get lost, and things happen in your life, and Satan comes along and says, "Look, you're a victim of God's circumstances, aren't you? God's nothing but just some victimizer up there wanting to do all these bad things to you because He really doesn't love you. And you want to follow somebody like this when all these bad things are happening to you? Look at, you are a victim of God's unbelievable evil circumstances. Why follow somebody like that?" And He levels out those kind of accusations against people, and a lot of people believe that. Is this not what He did with Eve in the garden? He says, "Eve, the only reason why God doesn't want you to eat from that tree